Okay, let me ask you something. What if everything you've ever been told about talent is just wrong? Today, we're going to tear that idea apart with Matthew Syed's incredible book, Bounce. It digs deep into one question: what really makes someone a champion?
And right away, the book hits us with this huge question. You know how it is, right? You see some amazing athlete or a brilliant musician, and the first thing you think is, wow, they were just born with that gift. But what if that's not the whole story? Bounce suggests the real answer is actually way more exciting. And maybe, just maybe, it's something we can all tap into.
I mean, this is the myth that's everywhere in our culture, isn't it? That success is like winning the genetic lottery. It's this magical thing that only a handful of people are blessed with. Well, we're about to unpack all the evidence in this book that shows why that idea, it just doesn't hold up.
All right, so let's get right into it with our first big section, the great talent lie. And who better to use as an example than the author himself, Matthew Syed. This guy was the #1 table tennis player in Britain for years. Everyone looked at him and said, he's so gifted. But his real story? Well, that's where things get really interesting.
So when you peel back the layers of his success, you find what he calls the hidden logic. It wasn't some random gift. First, he had a table tennis table right in his garage. Then, he had a super passionate older brother who was always ready to play, pushing him constantly. He also got access to an amazing coach, Peter Charters, who saw his potential. And here's the kicker. He got a key to a local club. Think about that. 24/7 access to practice whenever he wanted. It wasn't magic at all. It was the perfect storm of opportunity, meeting thousands upon thousands of hours of practice.
And that right there is the core message of the book. Excellence isn't some magical thing you're born with or you're not. It's actually more like a recipe. You need the right opportunities, you need the right environment, and then you have to pour in a relentless amount of practice.
Okay, so if relentless practice is the secret sauce, then how much are we actually talking about? 100 hours, 1,000? Well, that leads us straight into our next big concept, the 10,000-hour truth. This is where we start to put a number on what it really takes to become world-class.
And here it is, the big one, 10,000 hours. You've probably heard this number thrown around, maybe from Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers. But the idea really comes from the research of a psychologist named Anders Ericsson. And his work suggests that 10,000 hours is the kind of benchmark you need to hit to achieve true elite-level mastery in pretty much any complex field. And look, this isn't just some catchy number they pulled out of thin air. There's real data behind it. Ericsson did this landmark study at a music academy in Berlin, and what he found was just staggering. He looked at violinists and found that by the time they were 20, the ones who are on track to become international stars, they had all clocked around 10,000 hours of practice. The ones who were just good, they were closer to 8,000. And the students who were likely going to become music teachers, they had about 4,000 hours. The single biggest difference wasn't some magical talent. It was simply the sheer volume of practice.
So the bottom line here is pretty simple and honestly a little tough to swallow. If you want to be world-class at something, you need world-class practice. There are no shortcuts. There are no secret hacks. It's all about putting in the hours, day after day, year after year.
Okay, so let's say you've done it. You've put in the 10,000 hours. You're set for life, right? Well, not exactly. Because there's a whole other battlefield, the one inside your own head. This brings us to our next section, all about the hidden power of your mind, which, as you'll see, is a real double-edged sword. Yeah, our minds can be our best friend or our worst enemy. On one hand, you've got the incredible power of belief. This is your fuel. It's the placebo effect. It's the rituals that build confidence. It's trusting your gut. But on the other side, you've got the trap of pressure. This is where choking comes in, where overthinking completely destroys your natural flow, and your own conscious brain sabotages you.
Let's talk about those rituals for a second, because some of these are wild. You've got Jonathan Edwards, a world record-holding triple jumper who used to pray over a can of sardines for strength. You have Serena Williams, who had to bounce the ball exactly 5 times before her first serve. Tiger Woods in his famous red shirt on the final day of a tournament. And Wade Boggs, the baseball player, had to eat chicken before every single game. These things sound like silly superstitions, but they're not. They are powerful psychological anchors that create a sense of control and let the unconscious mind do its thing.
So what about the flip side? What happens when your mind betrays you? Well, that's what we call choking, and the book has a brilliant explanation for it. Basically, after all that practice, your skills become automatic. They live in your fast, unconscious mind. Choking is what happens when pressure makes your slow, clunky conscious brain suddenly decide it needs to take over. It's like the conscious mind shoves the expert pilot out of the way and tries to land the plane by reading the instruction manual.
And here's how it plays out. Matthew Syed himself experienced this firsthand at the 2000 Olympics. All his table tennis skills were second nature, completely automatic. But then, in that high-pressure moment, his conscious brain kicked in. He started thinking about how to hit his forehand, a shot he'd practiced millions of times without a single thought. And what happened? His movements, which were usually fluid and fast, became stiff and awkward. He looked like a total beginner. That's the devastating power of choking. Your conscious brain gets in the way of your own expertise.
All right, so we've talked about the power of practice and the tricky nature of our own minds, but there's one more massive piece of this puzzle we need to look at, and it has to do with the world we grow up in. In this last section, we're going to debunk one of the most stubborn myths out there, the idea that our success is all written in our genes.
So here's the big question. Is success written in our DNA? I mean, for years, we've all heard these stereotypes, right? That people from certain racial backgrounds are just natural sprinters or natural long-distance runners. But does the science actually back that up?
Well, the book dives into this head-on. On one side, you have the myth of genetic superiority. You know, the idea that sprinters of West African descent are just born faster, or that East African runners are born with better endurance. But then you look at the reality, and a different picture emerges. It points to powerful environmental advantages. For example, many of the world's best distance runners come from high-altitude areas in Kenya, where kids literally run miles to and from school every day. That's an incredible training advantage built right into their daily lives. It's less about their biology and more about their biography.
And when you look at the actual science, it's pretty clear. The genetic differences between different human populations are absolutely tiny. The things that really make a difference are culture, environment, and the specific opportunities you get. So, no, greatness isn't written in our DNA. It's forged by the world we live in.
So, where does that leave us? After all of this, Bounce basically gives us a whole new rulebook for thinking about success. First rule, forget about innate talent, it's way overrated. Second, practice is pretty much everything. Third, your own belief is an incredibly powerful tool that can work for you or against you. And finally, and this might be the most important one, your environment, your opportunities, that's what truly shapes what you're capable of.
And that brings us to the final, and maybe the most powerful question of all. If success isn't some magic you're born with, if it really is a formula of practice, belief, and opportunity, then what could you achieve? What's really stopping you from becoming great at something if you decided to start today?